I have concerns regarding PBIS as well, and here are my concerns. I believe it was Dr. Altwerger who made the statement that there's not a lot of money in the line item for it. I'll tell you why. Because our PTAs are being pressured to fund it. And this has been a problem. I have to tell you, if we have an educational program, then we, the Howard County Public School System, needs to find a way to fund it, or we don't require it. Some PTAs have line items of $1,500 in their budgets, and these are not PTAs that are rolling in money. This, either it's a good program and we pay for it, or it's not a good program, or we come up with something else. But I don't want to see this on the backs of our PTAs, because they do so much for our schools, and they are picking up slack in different areas. And they're being told that if they don't pay for it, then the school can't do it. I mean, this is not how we should be running a program, because, as I said, if it's something worthwhile, then let's have that conversation. I don't want to see any of our PTAs pressured as to contributing to a program.
What you're talking about are the prizes for the incentivizing and the rewards and things that occur. And I've had conversations with some of the leadership in PTAC about this, and I'm going to ask Frank to go in more detail because that can be a costly piece depending upon how the school proceeds with it, and I've got the same concern.
So we know that as part of PBIS, there are celebrations that are scheduled throughout the year, and depending on what those celebrations are, some of them cost money, and different parent groups have provided funds for those. When I heard that there was some feeling of pressure among PTSAs or PTAs to provide these funds, we communicated with our principals that there should not be an expectation that these be provided by parent groups. There are many things that we can do which don't cost much money at all, but can acknowledge the students for their behavior, and so we certainly encourage administrators and those staff members who implement the PBIS program to choose those as well. So I will continue to reiterate that there shouldn't be an expectation on parent groups that they provide money for these unless that's something that they have decided on their own that they want to support as an initiative.
Right, and I want to encourage PTA Council to reach out to the PTAs and let you know what the temperature is, so to speak,
Sure.
as to what that pressure is or isn't. The other thing regarding PBIS is that I've had different educators mention it to me and say that depending on how it's implemented, it may not necessarily, it may be PBIS, it may be called PBIS, but it may not be achieving the result that my colleagues are talking about. So again, I think this goes back to an issue of consistency across the system, and making sure that if we are implementing it, we're doing it to fidelity, and if not, we're not doing it or reevaluate it. Or do something else. Thank you.
In theory, PBIS is expected to provide that consistency from elementary, middle, and I believe that some even high schools have embraced it in other places, so that there's not the implementation of different responses behaviorally at different levels. And it's a question of how well we do that. I think it would behoove us to give a complete report out, what the intent is, MSDE's expectations of this, because there is a statewide component to this, as well as then how we're implementing here. My only caution is that before we throw it out, sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater, let's think about how we're proceeding, because I want to make sure we have something to replace that's effective and what the cost would be of that. At level. So I know we just did the quarterly agenda with Cabinet this morning. We may want to revisit that and accelerate that report.
And I would like to add that PBIS is not a prescriptive program that requires particular activities in the school. It's really a framework for ensuring that staff, students have knowledge of here's what our expectations are for behavior, and here's how we expect those to be those behaviors to be exhibited in many different settings, in the classroom, in the cafeteria, in the hallway. And so it's more about a framework than a prescriptive program. And again, I think an evaluation would be great. I know when we implemented it at my former school, one of the comments from the kids, the students, was everybody's saying the same thing this year. And so that's one of the things that we want from that program, where there is consistency. And so that was one benefit. But I think that with any program, we want to make sure that we're constantly evaluating the effectiveness of that and the implementation of that. Absolutely, Ms. Dumaswell.
And the other side, another piece of this is the using of this particular program with students with disabilities and the appropriateness of that, because that may not necessarily be appropriate. And I've heard from parents that that is also a challenge, that this is not something that works for those children, yet it's being implemented. So maybe we can look at it both from an overall school, but also have a special education component of that. I think that would be very helpful, because it goes back to having behavioral specialists and behavioral analysts not only helping on the special education side, but also providing that guidance and those tools to not only special educators, but also to general educators as well.
Absolutely.